there. Okay, so next topic is how to monitor vSAN health, capacity, performance of a VxRail cluster. So the best tool to look at when you want to monitor the health of your environment is a feature of vSAN called Skyline Health. The interface of Skyline Health has slightly changed in the most recent software version. So what you're going to look at in during this training is not really what you should expect to see if your production environment is running version 8.0.2xx. The interface has slightly changed, but the tool itself hasn't really changed much. I personally still prefer the old look of it. Now we have some sort of, it's like tiles or cards, okay, displayed. And each one of them shows you details about one specific aspect of Skyline Health. So first of all, what is Skyline Health? This is a test run automatically every 60 minutes. You can run it manually if you want to, after making some changes to your environment. For example, you just added some nodes and you want to make sure that your environment is healthy. You can run this test manually. The tests are grouped together in the form of categories, and each category will focus on one specific aspect of your VxRail environment. So one is going to test for network connectivity and everything related to the network. One is going to test for vSAN disk balance. One is for performance. One is for the data placement, physical disks, and so on and so forth. If you enable some of the features of vSAN, like if you have a stretched cluster, for instance, it's going to add a category specifically for stretched cluster. If you enable file services, if you enable eSCSI target, all of that will add an extra category which will help to monitor everything related to that feature that you just enabled. So the list of categories you will see here or you are looking at in this screen capture isn't really the entire list. It's not limited to these only. So during this part of the training, we'll just look at some of the categories. We'll not cover all of them. You have the lab environment if you want to, or official documentation from VMware at docs.vmware.com if you want to learn about each one of the categories. So first of all, you can run the test manually here. The test runs by default every 60 minutes. If you want to run it manually, you can do that from here. You can see when the test was last run automatically. You can view the history. The test will keep the results of the last 30 days. There is an overview. This is the part of the test that has changed. So the overview, they basically started improving this when vSAN 7 Update 3 was introduced. They, instead of showing you, all sorts of warnings and stuff, it applies like a pre-filter to show you the most important things you should be aware of based on priority and how critical is that for your environment. So you can see that from here. Few tests that we will focus on here are the vSAN disk balance. By default, vSAN will try to distribute the data across all the nodes and all the disks in your environment. The objective is to use the exact same amount in a perfect environment where you have the nodes participating each with the same amount of storage, same number of disks and same everything. It's going to try to use the same storage from each one of the disks. The default threshold is 30%. If one of the disks is being used more than the other disks, this will trigger a disk balance issue. You can set the rebalancing to automatic. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. It's going to be one of the discussions tomorrow. If you want vSAN to start moving the data to balance between disks in your environment. Anyway, so this category is there for this purpose, making sure that all the disks are being used equally. Online health, if you are part of VMware customer experience program, if your environment is connected to VMware servers, that's going to be visible here. If you're not using this feature, you can silence this notification so you don't get some sort of false alarms. If one specific test or category is not really something you are concerned about, you can silence it. You also have the possibility to read more about each one of the tests by looking simply at the description of the test. You can select the cluster, monitor. If you scroll down, Skyline Health. For example, if you have no clue what this test is about, you can simply select it, click on info, and you're going to get the description of what the test is about. You can also click on Ask VMware to get more details, and I can silence it by clicking here, so you don't get any notifications. Excuse me. Okay, so this is the online health performance service. This is going to look at the performance object. The performance service is the one that helps to create, this kind of performance statistics at the cluster level by clicking at monitor. Go to vSAN, you click on performance, you see a lot of data about what's going on in your environment. All these statistics are captured and kept in one of the objects, which is the performance object, this one here. Okay. So this test will look at the performance object and make sure that it's working as designed. There are no conflicts or whatsoever. vSAN build recommendation. So this can be ignored in the VxRail environment. This is about using the vSphere Lifecycle Manager and ensuring that you are running the most recent software and stuff like that. We don't use the vSphere Lifecycle Manager in VxRail. So this is one of the the tests that you can silent in a VxRail environment. You can also see the list of objects. There are different ways of doing that. One of them is to select the cluster monitor, then click on virtual object, and it's going to show you the list of objects in your environment. Most of the objects will belong to virtual machines, but you may see different objects based on the features you enabled in your environment. Sometimes you can see objects, for example, this is an unknown object. So for this one, for example, we need to go through CLI so we can identify to which VM or which component the object belongs to. If you want to see for this VM, for example, which objects are available, you can develop the view from here, the VxRail Manager. If you want to see where the components of each object are placed, all you need to do is to select the object, click on View, Placement, and you will see where the components are physically placed. Resyncing objects is visible from here. Okay. So if you are running into any resync operation, for example, after fixing a failed host and objects are being resync, or you moved from RAID 0, RAID 1, for example, to RAID 5, and we are recreating an object based on RAID 5 or RAID 1 architecture or vice versa, that's going to create a resync operation or trigger a resync operation. You can monitor that by clicking on resyncing objects. So you can see the total number of resyncing objects, the bytes left to resync, ETA, how much time is left to complete the resync. You can see if there are any scheduled resyncing, if we don't have resources, if vSAN is busy writing or reading data, it doesn't have any resources for the moment to allocate to this, you can see the scheduled resyncing. And all of that can be monitored from here. This is one of the monitoring tool that you need to look at before making any changes to your environment. You must ensure that there are no resyncing objects before making any major changes to your environment. Capacity can be monitored also from here. You can select the cluster, monitor, and I can see the capacity. From the capacity view, you can see the capacity history, okay, how much storage has been consumed recently, progression of storage usage for the last 30 days. You can also see how much capacity is actually used, really used, how much is actually written, how much is reserved. If you are thin provisioning your environment, that's visible from here. The what if analysis is a good option to see if all your thin provisioned disks or objects consume 100% of the provisioned capacity, how much capacity you're going to need. Okay. Uh, this is very useful for oversubscription. When you allocate more than what you have in a thin provisioning environment, this will help you to ensure that you will never run out of storage capacity. There is also a menu here which is called with the policy this, how much free capacity will I have? So this will assume that all your objects are using the same storage policy. For example, everything is running RAID 1 with an FTTF1. If you select it, it's going to tell you this is how much storage you would have available to be used for deploying additional objects. If you switch to, let's say, a policy using RAID 5, since RAID 5 consumes less storage, it's going to tell you this is how much storage you will have if you select another policy. So this is a menu that will really help you as an admin to keep an eye on how much storage you are consuming, how much is expected to be consumed if all the thin provisioned objects consume 100% of the allocated storage. And it can also help you to not overconsume storage and run out of capacity. If you want to see details about what's consuming storage, there is a usage breakdown. And as you can see, it's going to tell you what is actually consuming storage. Normally in a production environment, most of the screen captures in this training are, to not say all of them, are taken straight from lab environments. So it doesn't really reflect what you should exactly see as an admin in a production environment. So for instance, in a production environment, the storage will mainly be consumed by the objects that belong to the VMs. This means objects of the VMDK objects and whatever policy is associated to them. Then you have the swap objects, maybe some other objects placed into your vSAN data store like ISO files or templates whatsoever. The vSAN data store, after all, is just one additional data store in your environment, and you can explore it just like any data store used in more traditional environments like FCSAN, or when you have LUNs used as your main storage, you can explore their content, and you can pretty much do the same as the vSAN data store. So here you can see, for example, I'm able to look at the content of our vSAN data store without any issues. The performance service is enabled by default, okay? And as I explained before, it creates an object that's going to be used to capture statistics of your environment and show you, the fancy dashboards that all admins like to see. This is very useful for troubleshooting or monitoring simply the performance of your environment. You have a view at the cluster level. So if you select the cluster, monitor, I can click on performance, and it's going to give me details about VM. This is the front end, okay? So this is the performance as seen from a VM point of view. This is when the data hits the cache. I can see the IOPS, the throughput, the latency, etc. The backend represents everything happening when data is destaged. For example, if we are using RAID 1 with an FTTF1, front end here, as you can see, it's almost 19 IOPS. Backend, it's a little bit more, they'll double that number, which is an indication that we are using RAID 1. Because if we have 20 IOPS in the back end, RAID 1 with an FTT of 1, that's double that, 40 IOPS, plus whatever data is generated for metadata, witness, and stuff like that. So this is the back end. You also have a couple of additional options like IO Insight, which is a feature that will help you to record the statistics or performance of one specific object. Very useful for when you want to run an application and you have no idea what policy can work best for it. There are no recommendations from the vendor. You can try a couple of policies for that specific application in a development or testing VM, and you can measure the impact using IO Insight. You also get a view from or performance at the host level by selecting the host. For the host also, you have VM, backend, okay, disks, physical adapters, host network, okay. All of that is available here. And finally, we have performance at the VM level. I can see IOPS, I can see details about one specific disk, okay, one specific object.